we had to sneak this one in because it's going to be a big one.
Yeah.
And the dock workers across the East Coast are preparing to strike, and it's going to spread worldwide. And I think the best way to kick off today's topic is let's listen here from the union boss that had a lot to say on the topic.
These people today don't know what a strike is.
Right.
When my men hit the streets, from Maine to Texas, every single port will lock down. You know what's going to happen? I'll tell you. First week, be all over the news every night, boom, boom. Second week, guys who sell cars can't sell cars because the cars ain't coming in off the ships. They get laid off. Third week, malls start closing down.
What an asshole this guy
They can't
is.
get the goods from China. They can't sell clothes. They can't do this. Everything in the United States comes on a ship. They go out of business. Construction workers get laid off because the materials aren't coming in. The steel's not coming in. The lumber's not coming in. They lose their job. Everybody's hating the longshoremen now because now they realize how important our jobs are. Now I have the president screaming at me, I'm putting a Taft-Hartley on you. Go ahead. Taft-Hartley means I have to go back to work for 90 days. That's a cooling off period. Do you think when I go back for 90 days, those men are going to go to work on that pier? It's going to cost the company's money to pay their salaries. Well, they went from 30 moves an hour maybe to 8. They're going to be like this. Who's going to win here in the long run? You're better off sitting down and let's get a contract and let's move on with this world. And in today's world, I'll cripple you. I will cripple you, and you have no idea what that means. Nobody does.
No, I said he's such an asshole. He's like taking pride in saying, all these people are going to lose their jobs and these people are going to not be able to buy what they need because we're going on strike. It's like, you shouldn't be happy you're about to ruin a lot of people's lives. You're a piece of shit.
So I don't think he's being an ass about it. I think he's framing it as how important how everything comes through the ports and how we understand with 2020, we understand supply chains and have a better understanding of where all the stuff comes from. And it can only come in the country in so many different spots. You can't just beat
and Doug, I'm with David. Acknowledge what is he even talking about? He goes, you want automated ports? This isn't about the raise. You want to automate your ports? We're going to just stop working. We want not only a contract that pays us more, which is just what everybody's going to want.
Yeah.
But we also want in writing, you're not going to replace us. So it's really just the job security more than anything.
Yeah,
That's
but
what
he was taking pride in listing all the people that will lose their jobs.
No, I didn't take that at all. I took that as look at how much influence we have. This isn't Doug. He didn't even say
but
these are all the people losing their job.
Like it's like, by the way, guys, I'm going to exert my pressure on you.
No, it's not taking pride. It's letting you know the reality of the situation. Like,
there is
no one look at us. No one ever talk about the port worker. No one cares about the port worker. No one cares about the truck drivers. No one cares about these people. And they're finally putting their foot down because I feel like every time there's something to say from people that do the unspeaking jobs, no one really, as he said, we're going to figure out about it next week. And it's just going to strangle it. So let's actually sit down. He's not trying to be a bully or anything.
I agree.
No, but I think to Doug's point too, it's the mob really do like to use the leverage button quite a bit, letting you know kind of the state of things. And there's some, there's some history of the mob within unions. This isn't news to anybody.
Sure, and definitely the docks. I agree, but
it has undertones of don't fuck with us. Don't just let us do our thing here. And
see, I don't think that's it. I'm with Ricky. I don't think it's don't.
The man is protecting the future.
I think I want you to know how valuable we are, and if you don't appreciate it, we'll show you how valuable we are. Exactly. Before you have the chance to replace us. Because I don't know why we're glossing over a major piece of his statement is I want contractual knowledge that you're not going to replace me. But before I flip it to Silent and Ricky, does this at all evolve your position? it's showing that they already got a 55% raise, and they're looking for they want to get it to a 70% raise, and also add the piece where they can't go automated. Well, how much do you think they're getting paid? It's being reported that they're getting $150,000 and want more. So here's the deal.
I think that's more than enough for a dock worker.
Boom. Now here comes Doug. So all I'm saying is I got to agree that they're not being underpaid, but also like the truckers of America, that's kind of what they're getting paid. Some get 200, but it's a 6-figure gig. And again, it probably should be because you're the lifeblood of what's moving here. And for what the profit overhead is, we should, okay. It used to be all we want is food on the table. One, why have we gotten so gruesome that it's too much to ask to have like at least a little bit of balance to where like I could live a little bit just like you. Like you've got 3 houses. I would like just one in a vacation.
Yeah.
Like that would make me comfortably your slave. And why is that too much to ask for? But then at the same time, it isn't like they're getting paid pennies. This is a solid gig, and it is because I think where we're at socially, it's underappreciated. But does that at all evolve your perspective? And I don't know, what are your thoughts? Silent, Ricky?
So they're getting paid well, but I feel like every occupation should try to fight against automating their job. Like it's what everybody is fighting against, because unfortunately technology does erase jobs and you have to go find it somewhere else. But shit is moving too fast, and I can understand where he's coming from. Maybe he knows more than we do and sees something on the horizon that we don't know. And he's like, yo, we need another 30 years or 20 years before you start implementing these things and cutting a lot of departments.
Yeah, and I think one thing that gets lost with the salary, or like with the money talks, is how, with especially these union gigs, how many overtime hours are they working? Is this the median? Is this the average? Is this based on 40 hours? Typically, when I've seen these figures around, a lot of them are like the police figures come out too. It's overtime. They're working some pretty decent overtime, because the ports, they don't stop. They got to keep coming. Things come in. You know, people are paying good money to get these imports in, and you are sometimes the biggest bottleneck within a particular supply chain. So you got to keep going, got to keep moving. And sometimes when you don't have the manpower to replace like every shift, all right, Bob, you got to stay over next shift. We're going to need you for the weekend. Your daughter's baseball game or whatever's going on. Tough. And sometimes with these union contracts too, like paternity and maternity leave is almost like 2 weeks. It's not even like some salary gigs, or even, like regular, like salary gigs, like the government. It's usually about 6 weeks. And hey, if you're a union for this, and that's what they negotiate in these deals, or if you ever look at a union contract, there's a lot of provisions, all sorts of different things. Yeah, we want more money, but then the employers go, well, all right, we're going to take your paternity leave. So you get 2 weeks, you have a child, 2 weeks. All right, we expect you back into on the shore or wherever they're going to be. So there's a lot of give and take. And this isn't a typical white collar job that's paying, $150,000 a year. This, they're working. They're putting long hours in. This isn't, I don't.
It takes a toll.
Yeah, it takes a toll. This isn't a simple like computer desk gig. It's a bit more involved than that. So I don't necessarily blame them because what's their marketable skills too outside of this? Let's say they're just replaced tomorrow. Yeah, you could probably do some, labor jobs other places, but it's not, you're going to be moving. It's kind of like what we saw with the auto manufacturing plants that left Flint. Once those left, I don't have marketing skills. I don't have, supply chain skills. I don't have this, that, or the other. So now I'm just kind of stuck.
Right.
What am I doing? Driving truck or doing something else that might not be quite as satisfying to me with my current skill set. That's what they're trying to protect.
Well, let's ask the bigger philosophical question then. Do you preserve jobs that are, I don't want to say becoming extinct, but that's pretty much what they are, right? Like at some point. So here's what's crazy. I think it was 2016. I can't recall anymore, but Andrew Yang, what year was it that he was running for president?
It was, I think it was
2016.
It was, 2016.
So in 2016, he was on Joe Rogan making the point that we need universal basic income, which if we need to walk down that road today, I will, but I'm against it and I will defend that point. But he was making the point of we need to have universal basic income because the trucking industry is like 60% of the country's employment. And like everybody makes that goes into that industry or something like 40%, something huge, like some huge major chunk. And all of those that take on the trade, most of them are like independent contractors. They get into like a position where they buy a truck, pay it off. Then they're like running their own semi. Then they can like buy more and lease them. And like these people really build huge lifestyles in this field. Yep. He goes, and that will be completely replaced when cars go automated and especially shipping. Like whether we go to drones or whatever the case may be, this is not a job that'll be around forever. So like the port worker, right? Like what are you fighting against? An automated port? Like what do we do when there is a society that no longer needs these jobs, however, is struggling to preserve them so people continue to have a role or a need in our society? Or how do you develop ways for them to have a different or new role in that society, right? Because it was totally offensive and cruel to make hashtag learn to code when these industries were replacing the trade workers. And just, you were literally talking about Flint. This was it. And they were like looking at those people going, fine, hashtag learn to code. And it's like, how are you going to look at a 45-year-old man that's been screwing widgets for 25 years and you're going to be like, learn to code? That's how we're going to find a new role for you. So this poses the question, do you preserve dying industries for the sake of preserving roles? But then if your only role or value to my society is in a dying or old or trade that holds us back, then why do I find you, this is the utilitarian perspective, but like, why are you necessary or worth preserving? Maybe you either need to get with it or fall by the wayside. That's for the betterment of the people. Or is it for the betterment of the people to carry the dead weight? I don't know.
Well, what makes this one particularly unique versus some of these other industries that are dying, like let's use the coal industry for an example. That's one that's dying. For what I understand, the amount of subsidies the government gives for these ports isn't quite as vast or as large or as significant as, let's say like a coal mining operation or some green energy and some high cost of living areas. This one, they're making good money. These ports are making quite a bit of money bringing them in, because I think there's regulated. It's a bit of a cartel. There's only so many of them, and you're not really going to be building too many more. That's why that one in Miami is so important, because it's an existing port and they just expanded it. So all of a sudden they're able to kind of make more hay with what they already had infrastructure wise. You're not putting another port anywhere else. So
right,
kind of what's there is there. And there's maybe one or two more every decade. That's it.
Is he going to do it? He's going to do it. I can't resist. You know how like part of the major war going on in the Middle East and, that country we were going to try to avoid saying today.
Yep.
There's a port that like America is helping them because it'll the West Indies, it'll disrupt a lot of trade within that area. I can totally see them automating this and just being like, nope, this is we're talking about the people that are talking about maximizing the dollar everywhere you can. Like they are for sure going to automate that port.
we'll see how important these ports really are in wartime. Because that's when you really know when efficiency is absolutely crucial.
And we're there.
And
grab your popcorn.
if that port becomes automated, and that's just the way of the future, and you're at a certain point stopping progress, you're always going to be on the losing side of it. Now there's a different maybe this might just be a negotiation tactics. We've seen this a couple times. We asked for 70% more raise. Well, I'm actually really aiming for like 30% more, because if they remove it, everyone just feels better about it. So maybe they're saying we want zero automation.
Exactly.
When probably what they're shooting for is, hey, we'll allow progress to happen, but we need to maintain a certain percentage of these jobs that we currently
Or it's
have.
you already gave me a raise, so it's I'm asking for more and I want zero automation. And when you come to the table and go, we will give you no more money, but we'll ensure that we'll refrain from automation for 10 years. They're like, take it.
Yeah. Or just secure. We have automation, but no job's going to be lost until the next round of thing. Okay.
Right.
That's probably what they're doing with this. Because I just don't see a world we're very capitalistic.
So what's the answer to my philosophical question, damn it?
Should we keep a dying industry? But I don't think this industry is dying. So
Ports, sure, but what about trucking?
Trucking,
I'm just saying philosophically, if there's an industry where the people are becoming
railroads, man, all the accidents and everything, I think people are going to give up on the railroads.
That might be a better example,
because trucking can get you more places.
It's still the job itself, but I'm saying if there is a social role that takes on a major part of your industry, but is replaceable by a drone, by an automated car, or some algorithm or technology that could literally replace it with maximum profit and also maximum efficiency. Do you hold back society and its growth for the sake of prosperity within the people? That's a question. Where are the people in the comments? Do you not have a philosophical opinion? What is this?
Should we keep the trucks? Keep them going. So I'll be the first.
I would never want a self-driving truck on the road.
I don't want.
I would worry about
You're not
that.
going to have a
more than
choice,
anything
Doug.
else.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
when
but that's
Zuckerberg or what's the bald one that owns Amazon?
Bezos.
When Bezos owns it all, he's not going to care Doug's opinion.
Well, Bezos will be using drones. He's already working on that.
Yes.
He won't use trucks anymore.
For small parcel stuff, but you're not hauling 24 tons of stuff through a drone. It's just not possible.
All right, so distill the point.
So I don't think you hold back. You don't hold back progress, because once you hold back progress, you're putting an artificial ceiling. You're essentially subsidizing a lifestyle that isn't sustainable. And over the long term, you're just not going to succeed, and you're not going to have a prosperous life. We'll almost always say, if you rip the Band-Aid off early, it's
what I mean.
It's gonna be rough for a little bit. It might be rough for years, it might be rough for a decade, but eventually it'll work itself out, and there will be progress. Because that's
what I think.
Not everyone can just be poor and stock goes up always. It just doesn't work that way. You can't have that. It's not a sustainable atmosphere.
I agree.
So I don't think you stop it. Do you put provisions in the way to maybe ensure that there isn't going to be just total loss on day one? Possibly. I think there's probably creative policies you can do around that, but to just stop it completely or just to go whole hog on one way, probably, I don't think either of those are necessarily healthy in the short term, but probably not in the long term either as well.
Yeah, I got to say, Silent, what are your thoughts on this whole thing? Wrap it up for us.
I worked in a union environment at Ford Motor Company for 2 years, so I know how important unions can be for certain jobs. But in a lot of cases, I think, especially this union, I guess boss or CEO, he clearly has a lot of leverage and he knows it. And that's why, he's got that kind of mob boss sort of vibe going to him. And
see, I'm not crazy to say that either. You got that vibe.
I got that vibe too, right? But the thing is, that's how unions get stuff done, right? They always negotiate very harshly, right? And at the end of the day, eventually, most unions don't really get that good of a deals anyways, because just like you guys said, they ask for a 70% raise because they just want 30, but they publicly ask for 70 and then they just eventually go down to 30, and that's kind of their style of negotiation. At least that's how it was in the in the auto industry, like the union that I was part of, Unifor, which is the union here in Canada. It used to be U-All here, but Unifor took over in the early 2000s. And a lot of what unions do is they negotiate, like kind of like what David said, like packages, right? So for me, because I was new there and I was only there for 2 years, even though the contract that I signed said I will make 180,000, right? But what they don't tell you is you don't make that right away. You have to wait 10 or 12 years before you make that, right?
Oh, jeez.
And when you sign, it's only like $20 an hour, right? It's not that great pay compared to, you know, our minimum wage here is $16. So you're only making $4 above minimum wage. It's like a good job 20 years ago, but nowadays it's not really that good of a job anymore, you know, because like I said, these contracts, they increased on the top end, meaning if you've been there for a long time, you're going to get taken care of. But if you're new, just signing in, I don't know how it is at the port, but at least that's how it was at Ford. If you're new, just getting into the union and paying your dues, you're getting screwed. You're basically subsidizing the guys that have been there for 20 years, right? You're getting the shit out of the stick. They're paying you only $20 an hour. Whereas someone doing the exact same job that you're doing is getting paid 80 or 90 or 100 an hour, you know? And that's where, in my opinion, the union fails to protect the new people that come in and pay the same dues, which is like $600 or $700 a month. By the way,
that's
Ford,
definitely the hierarchy of it.
So that's my whole take. Like the whole union thing is kind of good and it's kind of bad. It's good if you've been at the company for a very long time. It's bad if you're new and you're just joining. Because a lot of times, like I said, you don't really reap the rewards of those big contracts that the union sign unless you've been there like at least 10 years. And for most of these jobs, especially ports and especially, I mean, I assume it's the same for ports, but at least when I was at Ford, a lot of people quit very fast because these jobs are not easy to do. They're very mentally draining. You're doing the same thing over and over again for 12 hours straight, 6 days a week, sometimes even 7. There's mandatory overtime that because the government subsidizes these companies, you have to come in. You don't have a choice. It's mandatory overtime, right? And a lot of these unions know that if they don't give the union members this mandatory overtime, then next year the government's not going to give them a tax break, right? So there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that also being negotiated by the unions. So to sum it all up, I think a lot of these port jobs are very important, but eventually technology is just going to have to come over and take jobs. That's just how it is. Think of like telephone line operators, you know, in the 20s and the 30s when they had to like manually hook, you know, telephone lines and connect people manually, right? Technology erased all those jobs, and those jobs were a huge part of the economy, right? For like a decade or two. And now they're non-existent, right? But we, you know, we prevail, like we move on fine. Eventually, technology allows us to take out these sort of jobs because, like I said, a lot of these jobs, nobody wants to do them, right?
Right. That's the bigger piece here.
Well,
right?
and like Elon Musk, man, he's automated a lot of his facility.
Right. And at least like when I was at Ford, like I'll give you guys a perfect example. When I first got into Ford, my first week there was 35 people in my class, right? Like in my training class, training with me. After the first week, can you guys guess how many people stayed out of those 35?
12.
5.
Ooh, Ricky's close.
Wait,
10.
how many were there total?
35 in my
10.
training class.
7.
Ricky was the closest. 3, and I'm one of them. 4. 4 people stayed.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Everybody else quit on the spot first week. They left. They're like, nope, not doing it. And there was 2 girls also in my training class. They twisted their wrist because the guns are so like torque heavy. It's like 20-30 pounds of torque.
Oh, yeah.
So if you don't know how to catch the gun, you literally will spin your wrist and you'll be hurt like really badly. But that's what I mean, right? Like a lot of these jobs, the reason why they're getting automated is because these companies know it's only a matter of time before there's just not going to be enough students or desperate people to want to come in and do these jobs because they're shitty jobs. They just are. Like there's no sugarcoating it, you know? It's not an easy job to do. And at least Ford company, like, and I'm sure the poor people know that eventually the robots are just going to come and take these jobs over. So until then, they're probably just going to keep giving these unions what they want, because they know that right now these unions have leverage. But eventually, once robots become cheap, right? Once it becomes so much cost effective that they literally can just lay people off and bring in the robots. And I hate to say it, that's and this is coming from someone who was in the industry for 2 years. That's eventually what's going to happen.
Right.
And you have two options, right? You can either stay at the company for as long as you can. And usually, you know, like I said, within 10 years, most of the time, the union will protect you. Even once the robots come in, you will still have a job guaranteed. But then it's a risk that you're willing to take. Like, do I want to sink in 10 years into this place plus and just, you know, coast until retirement? Or do I want to, you know, pivot to something else, like a new sector or a new industry or a new career? And that's what most people, when I was at Ford, were asking themselves, right? Like, do I want to just stay doing the same thing, breaking my back, doing the same thing over and over again, and wait for that $80, $100 an hour in 10 years? Or do I just want to completely pivot? And the answer is, for most people, is they just completely pivot.
No, I love that point. Ricky, wrapping thoughts, my friend.
Y'all articulate everything greatly. I can't add nothing. I can't judge nothing else on this topic, honestly.
All right,
Ricky.
Wrapping thoughts. Bringing down. I wanted to rip down the line and feed off of everybody. So feeding off Ricky. Ricky gave me nothing. Silent Destroyer. I like his point about unions. You know, it brings the question. So sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit. That's kind of how like we circle the drain when it comes to unions. But I also, the crux of the whole point when it comes to unions is exactly how Silent wraps his point. They have power insofar as they have leverage. And the second they have no value, they have no leverage, they then, again, here's the thing. You can exploit your leverage, but just know the second somebody's able to break away from that leverage, they're going to totally kick you to the curb. If it's one of those, like, you could play on pity or empathy when you concede your leverage and kind of have, again, it's a weird world, because you can't blame somebody for doing it because they're often as it's been referenced throughout the dialogue, often in industries that nobody really wants to involve themselves because they're difficult, they're physically straining, and sometimes don't have a long life expectancy, right? Like what about coal miners? Or, you know, this dialogue isn't solely to the dock worker, but that's the hot topic of the day. That's the news title. I like Doug just, it starts and stops with the mob boss is mean. The mob boss is mean.
He's playing his card a little too hard, in my opinion.
I guess, but to me, I just thought it was, to me, that's not how I read it this morning. When it came out, breaking news, I'm watching, you know, the mob bosses, the union leaders press conference. And truthfully, to me, it just read as a stern, this is the influence. And it's not just going to be America. You're going to be hurt worldwide because we're all one and we're all in this together. And it's like, I think the starving guy in Cambodia is not getting the same benefit as your union. And I'd like to see how much, you know, alliance they share. David, I think you've raised some very cool points, and I can appreciate where you've taken it. I think we've avoided, though, the bigger topic of the news headline, which is, you know, we could walk down the roads of like social morality, like should we as a society, and we could have all the philosophical conversations and fun we want. But the truth lies in this is happening. Right? Yeah. Like this strike is happening, and something that wasn't addressed at all in our conversation is the impact the union boss says that's going to have on our country. Like, we are going to be starved. And in the first week, there will be, as Doug was triggered by, job losses and impacts. However, by the second week, by the third week, not only are we going to be hit, like, yeah, he acknowledges this is how it's going to be hurting us. But on the greater scale, and why this is such a huge negotiating piece with the powers that be, is because we'll make your world halt. Yeah. And like, that comes back to you and I. Like,
send in the union busters.
Like, we can have a philosophical conversation with how much we love or don't like unions. And the truth is, that's moot, because we aren't in the conversation. So we can have an opinion, and it really doesn't matter because we're not on either end of the negotiation. But how it does matter to us, how it does impact our life, is there's going to be this like starve out.
Yeah. And
you got to ask yourself, like, how's that going to impact us? What are we going to do? And again, this circles the same drain. Go look at some of our old segments, Rethink Solutions. Like, this circles the same drains of when the grid goes down, or if there's a zombie apocalypse, or all these survival scenarios. Like, this is a strand of the same head. And this can lead in a very dangerous place quick if they're able to hold out and starve the negotiation and scenario long enough. So that's the thing to be more concerned with, because it feels and it's being reported as if this is really happening. And within the next week or two, we could be seeing its impact. So I think that's the bigger takeaway. Wrapping thoughts, David.
Yeah, I think that is one piece of the dialogue we didn't bring too much into it. I think a lot of it's going to be a bit more kind of multinational, corporate based. I think the auto industry is probably going to be really affected by this. Yeah. A lot of that supply chain is structured by just in time, and there's a lot of raw materials that come in and out of those ports that are like, I need this to arrive, and with as very little time as possible to get on a truck and get over to me so I can make whatever I got to make, send it to my customer. We're going to see some, I mean, if they strike, we're going to see some of that. There's going to be some plant closures that just doesn't have it. And there's going to be some downstream effect. But what we saw with the railroad, if we remember the railroad strike, the government just didn't let it happen. Said, no, sorry, we're going to enforce the National Security Act, and you're not going to be able to do anything about it. So tough. If the government,
how'd they get them to work?
I just said you can't strike. Basically,
what does that even mean?
If they don't show up for work, the federal government can find and arrest you.
Yep.
National Security Act. Yeah, that's why someone mentioned in their talk.
That's not screwed up.
No. Someone mentioned in the talk. Well, what happens? What happens during wartime? Well, during wartime, they just won't let you strike.
Yep.
They'll beat the shit out of you, put you in jail if you don't show up for work.
They'll essentially just get the military to do it. That's what they'll do.
Wait,
they'll draft you.
How
that's
is this not the bigger topic?
Alex, what
this
they'll do
is crazy.
No, they'll draft you. That's what they'll do, is they'll conscript you for military service to make you work.
Oh shoot.
That's what I think they'll do.
Bro. Yeah. There is no way. There is no way.
Well, it hasn't been used since the Korean War.
Yeah, they haven't. They're going to do, but this current administration has shown the propensity to do just that, or at least threaten it. And we saw it with the railroad. Now, eventually, I think the one thing that wasn't quite as well reported, I don't think the administration didn't do it very good as well, is they eventually got everything they wanted for the most part. I think a lot of it was like sick leave and being able to like take days off without giving a 60-day notice.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Rethink Tank Live. Join us every Tuesday at 7 p.m. streaming across the platforms on YouTube, Rumble, X, Twitch, Facebook, LinkedIn, and TikTok. We do our best to promote user engagement, and we want you involved. So be sure to bring your perspective live so we can get you in the dialogue. See you then.